started. So the poll was just asking if you guys have utilized the ATR program before. We're actually about 50-50. So some people have not, which is great. If you have, hopefully you can utilize our program again this year. And if you have not, hopefully we can get some new people in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, my internet's running a little bit slow today. I'll go ahead and introduce myself though. I am Kara Adams. I'm with Missouri Assistive Technology. I am the program coordinator for the AT Reimbursement program, so ATR. I also am the program coordinator for our ETC device loan program. So those programs go very well together. And then I'm going to let Felicia introduce herself as well.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. So my name is Felicia George. I am an administrative assistant with Missouri Assistive Technology. I will be helping Ms. Kara with the AT Reimbursement program. That means I will be corresponding with many of you through the ATR approval and reimbursement notification letters, and also following up when more documentation is needed. I do just want to thank you all for supporting these students, and I look forward to working with you all. Have a great day.
Thank you, Felicia. All right, I'm going to try this again. Okay. Okay, so like I mentioned, this is the ATR webinar. We're just going to talk a little bit about the ATR program, what the process looks like. And if you guys have any questions or anything, save all your questions for the end because we might answer it. And then I also want to make sure we have a lot of information to get through. So just to kind of be mindful of the time. I think I scheduled it about 30 minutes. If you guys do have questions and you want to hang around after, we'll stay around and answer a few questions, but always feel free to email us or call us, especially if you have anything like specific, you don't know if, the situation or the device will work for a student, if we'll reimburse for it. We're always happy to talk through those. All right, so I'm just going to jump right in. Okay, so the ATR program, what is it? So it is through Missouri Assistive Technology. It is our reimbursement program. We help assist public, charter, and state schools in Missouri with covering the cost of assistive technology devices for students. And who qualifies for the program? It's any kindergarten through 12th grade student. Unfortunately, we don't do early childhood, but if you do, I know sometimes with special ed, you have those students that do stay until they're 21. They're still technically in 12th grade, so we cover that as well. They do have to be on an IEP. We don't reimburse for students that are only on 504 plans. And then they have to have assistive technology required marked on the special considerations page. So right here, this is the page that I'm talking about. So does the student require assistive technology devices or services? Yes. You don't have to have an explanation as to what they need. That's not required for our purposes. Your school might, say something different. But here, if you do say anything, just keep it very vague. They need, like this one, you can see that the student is blind or visually impaired, and then what they require as far as assistive technology down here, it just says the use of a CCTV magnification device. So those pair up well. I would keep it very vague. Never use like a specific name of a device because you never know if that device is going to be discontinued. And then if it is discontinued, you're still held liable. So especially with, all the manufacturing issues that we've had, since COVID, just keep it very vague if you do put anything on there. So in order to apply, you're going to need the student's MoSIS number and then their date of birth. So I would make sure that you have all this information beforehand. Our application is a Google form, and I don't know that it lets you save once you kind of get started. So it's good to have all this information before. You will have to upload their present level and then their special considerations page from their IEP. It needs to be the most current IEP. If you are still in the phase where it's not a finalized IEP, I've had people that have submitted, when they're still kind of in the process. I will ask you to follow up later on and provide that finalized copy. Just for our purposes, we prefer that you have the finalized before you do the whole process. But, I understand too, sometimes people want to kind of get a jump on getting the devices. The student does have to complete either a device trial or an assistive technology evaluation. They have to have one of the two. They do not have to have both. So we'll talk a little bit about each one. If you do the device trial, you will have to discuss the device trial. And then if you do the AT evaluation, you will have to upload a copy of that evaluation. And then always have a price estimate for the devices too. You don't have to be exact. It's better, especially for our purposes, it's better if you kind of overshoot than under. But we have had people contact us in the past where maybe they only requested 3,000 and, now the device is 3,100. So, depending on our budget and the way that things go, sometimes we can just reimburse for that extra amount. But again, it's always better to get a quote from the company and to overshoot if you don't know the exact round up, I would say. But again, a quote from the company is going to be the best. And then for our purposes, you will have to upload, once you're approved, you'll have to have the devices ordered and the invoices uploaded within 90 days. So hopefully, once you get that quote, hopefully the prices won't change that drastically within that time period. Okay, so as far as the device trial, most people go the device trial route. We do have devices available through our loan program. So and then here's our website link. It's just at.mo.gov and then /device-loan. We do have it's a 5-week trial when you borrow from our loan library. You do not, for ATR purposes, you do not have to complete the full 5-week trial. We have people that they'll get the device and they know, within a week or sometimes even within a couple days that this is the device that they need, that it's going to work. And they want to go ahead and get that device ordered because it does have to be sent back to, if you're loaning, it does have to be sent back to us within 5 weeks. So it's kind of nice to go ahead and get that process started because sometimes companies may take a month to get, the devices to you. So again, for our purposes, you don't have to complete the full 5 weeks, but you do have that 5 weeks to have the device, to trial it. You can trial it with multiple students during that time frame. Similar devices will also work if you're doing a device trial. So if you're requesting an iPad with touch chat, but you only tried a Nova Chat that also has touch chat on it, that's perfectly fine. That makes sense to us. We prefer, as close as you can get to certain things. Especially like with AAC devices, a lot of them are very similar. But when you kind of get into some of the magnifiers and the hearing devices, those can kind of vary, and they can be very user specific or user preference. So if you can trial the specific device, that is the most preferable. But if you do something similar, that's okay as well. And if a student has been using a device previously and they just need an upgrade, if it's broken and they need a new one, you can just say that. Again, there's a little section where you kind of discuss the device trial. So you just mention, they've been using this device for the past 5 years. It just dropped and shattered. We need a new one. And that is enough for us. And devices also do not have to be trialed from us. You can trial them from the company, directly from the company, especially with AAC devices. A lot of companies will do trials, but sometimes they kind of send you guys to us. But that is an option. You could always go that route if for whatever reason you couldn't borrow from us, or if we didn't have the device, you could always reach out to that company. If another student within your school has that device and the student that you're applying for could just maybe have access to it for a couple days, or however you want to work that out, that is okay with us as well. Again, you'll just kind of go into detail of how you trialed it, but we're not going to, go look you up in our loan system to see if you actually trialed, a specific device from us. We don't match those up. So it does not have to be from us. So this is on the application. Again, there's a section to discuss the device trial. So these are just a few examples of what people have just discussed in the past. So-and-so completed an approximate 4 to 6 week trial with an iPad. And then it says even on here, like, he's now at the elementary level, he requires a dedicated communication device. So they're probably requesting something like a NovaChat. So again, those two are very similar. iPad, you can, get on the internet and do some other things. So they wanted a device that you can't do that. So they're requesting a NovaChat. That makes perfect sense. This other one down here, they tried a single button switch, and then they just kind of talk about, he actually uses, it sounds like he uses eye gaze regularly. But eye gaze, you can't use it all the time, especially it sounds like he gets up and walks around and they don't want to use eye gaze during that time. So they're looking for a secondary communication device. So they're requesting a mount and a switch. Again, explanation like that is great. Makes total sense as to why they're requesting something like that. And then this one down here, they have a VisioBook CCTV. It stopped working, but he's very proficient at using it. Again, makes great sense of why they're requesting that. And then here's a few other ones. So again, they've been using a computer for several years and now it's kind of getting out of date. And then they kind of go into why she continues to need that. So we would approve something like that. Down here, they just talk about they completed a 6-week trial and they talk about, given the choice of, they kind of talk about lower and higher tech here, which is great. If you guys could, if you guys can try different options, that's always preferable because it's also kind of nice to rule out that maybe you didn't need this lower tech device, that you need the higher tech, or vice versa. So, for this student in the middle, given the choice of PECS or touch chat, they prefer to use touch chat. And then down here, I just wanted to point out too, we don't require any kind of data or anything. So like this one down here, they again trialed a GoTalk 9, it sounds like, and they were using it independently and they put in, when prompted, for 50% of the time. You don't have to put in data like that. We don't require any kind of specific data. It doesn't have to be like 80% or more. As long as it benefits the student, it is, and it makes sense, it is great in our book. Okay, so just some do's and don'ts with device trials. discuss all the devices that were trialed. So if you are looking at like AAC options and you have used, just simple PECS communication books before, if you use like a one button switch and then maybe you tried a tablet, discuss all of that, because that's just kind of more information for us to kind of connect the dots. Again, we don't get to meet these students. It's just, we just rely on the present level and then kind of what you guys are saying about the device trial. So the more information you can give us, the best. It doesn't have to be anything super lengthy. If you're taking, over an hour to do this application, you're probably adding too much. So just give us enough information to get a feel of the student, to get a feel of what their needs are, and why you're requesting these devices. Tell us how long the trial was. That's always really helpful. You could see a lot of those previous examples. They were saying, about 4 to 6 weeks. Some people, they had tried it for much longer, or they discussed, that they've been using it for the last 5 years and they just needed a new one. So that's always good information for us to know as well. And then just a brief discussion of how the student uses the device, the features that work for them, maybe why does touch chat work better than a Go Talk for them? Do they need something that has more options, that's more customizable? Kind of some of those differences there. And then just how the student benefits from the device. Are they able to, request stuff independently that they weren't able to do before? And that's always great information for us to know. Yep. Okay, I went too far. Okay, and then some don'ts. Don't leave it blank. Unless you had an AT evaluation, I've had some people that they don't put anything. And we're going to reach out to you and we're going to ask, okay, tell us either about this trial, or you're going to need to complete a trial, or send us an AT evaluation at that point. But yeah, don't leave it blank, because we will reach out and ask for more information. And then that just kind of delays the process. So let us know, what they've trialed, or send the AT evaluation. Don't talk about a device trial. That is very different than the device being requested. If you're requesting, a vision device, but you're only talking about trialing a hearing device, that does not make sense to us. We're going to ask questions, because we always make sure that the trial kind of lines up and makes sense with what is being requested. And then don't also say, I was kind of going through some from last year, and I had a few people that said, I think that they would benefit from this device, and they never actually tried the device. So again, we reach out and clarify, did you actually have access to the student have access to this device? And sometimes people, they just don't, think about the fact that if they've been able to use it from another student, and kind of play around with it, that is a device trial. So you can just talk about that. But if you haven't, again, our loan library is open. I would suggest, getting started with that process first, if you have not trialed a device. And again, data is not necessary. We don't need that for our purposes. As far as the AT evaluation, we don't require any specific form. I know if families choose to go through insurance to get certain things, they are very specific. We are not. It does need to be somebody that's qualified to conduct evaluations. So speech language pathologists, an audiologist, an optometrist. Again, as long as it, makes sense. Some medical reports will qualify. I'll kind of show you some different AT evaluations that I've gotten. So if you're requesting a hearing device and you have a report from an audiologist, that makes sense. So that qualifies as far as an AT evaluation. And then I also wanted to point out too, Forbes really has a great AAC evaluation guide. Let me pull that up here. So Forbes, they are the company, they do pro slates and win slates, their communication devices. So some parts are a little bit kind of, you know, specific and in favor of those devices. But overall, this is just a great form because I kind of think it encapsulates everything that you need to consider whenever looking at different AAC devices. So it just goes through if they're, you know, if they've had speech therapy, how their mobility is. It talks about different access methods within here as well. Are they going to be able to direct select? Do they need to look into a key guard? Do they need to look into switch access or eye gaze? And I think you can actually fill it out directly online. So this is kind of the section, you know, pro slates have, they have sound pods that are very specific to them, pro slates and win slates. So it kind of, you know, talks about that. But aside from that, everything is pretty general, and it just kind of gets you thinking of all the different things that you should be considering whenever looking at a device. So, and if you need a mount, different things like that. So let's see, let me try to get that. Okay. And then here are some other AT evaluations. So this is from a speech language pathologist. Again, because you didn't do a device trial, just the more information that you can give, just to kind of give us an idea of where the student is at, what their needs are, and what device would be most beneficial to them. So this one it gives a background of the student. It talks about the environment that they're in, the different tasks that they're doing, and then just an overall conclusion, I think. So, and it doesn't say, you know, anything, you know, up here it talks about how they trialed the LAMP app, but as far as recommendations, you know, like this one specifically says both low and high tech communication systems should always be available. So this is a great form for us. We don't like, you know, for specific, you know, evaluators to favor specific devices, but overall in general, they do need a high-tech device, you know, something more generalized like that. This one is for a vision device. So this is from Lighthouse for the Blind in St. Louis. So it talks about her vision needs. And then over here, it has recommendations. So, you know, a larger Chromebook. I know sometimes the schools, they give you like the smallest Chromebook possible. So if there are vision needs and you're requesting a larger iPad, a larger, you know, Chromebook, those types of things, that makes great sense to us. And then again, this one says, you know, they would benefit from a portable magnifier such as a Cloverbook. So it's, you know, just doesn't have to be a Cloverbook, but they did suggest something like that. This one is for hearing. So again, they kind of go through, this is an audiologist report, the different, you know, the different scores when it comes to hearing. They talk about up here kind of some of her background, wearing hearing aids. The left ear has a cochlear implant, things like that. So then they're likely requesting an FM system. So makes great sense to us. So as far as an AT evaluation, this would be great for any hearing device. And again, it just has recommendations. Continue to use the cochlear, which we don't cover anything like that, but use of remote microphone technology in an educational setting. So any type of, again, any type of FM system even ones that, like pair to headphones, that makes great sense to us. So going over what we can reimburse for. So we reimburse for a number of things. This list is not a complete list. We have so many things that we can reimburse for. AAC devices. If you do an iPad, whether it's an iPad, again, like if you're using a larger iPad, if student has a visual impairment, or if you're using an iPad as a communication device, we'll reimburse for the case, a screen protector. If if they need a keyboard or something like that with it, we can reimburse for all of that stuff. Text-to-speech software. So any kind of like reading technology. We have like Zoom text to enlarge screens. So anything like that we reimburse for. Magnifiers, braille embossers, those FM systems, any kind of listening device. We also reimburse for sensory items, switch toys, switches and mounts, assistive eating devices. Again, this is not a complete list, but it's quite lengthy. If you guys ever have a question about what we do or do not reimburse for, just email us, call us. We're always happy to talk through that. And again, just as long as it makes sense, we should see if you're requesting an AAC device, we should see something within the present level that talks about their communication needs. So they should all line up like that. And then items have to be a minimum of $350. And then we increased our maximum amount this year. It's up to $6,000. If it's below that $350, I would either look at some other AT that they may benefit from, or like I know, like a C pen, like a reader pen, I think they're only about $300. So I've told people in the past, get two, so then you can have a backup, and then it gets you to that, minimum amount. We won't approve two of everything, but if it's to get you over that minimum amount, we will approve that. And then if it's over $6,000, that's totally fine. You can, do the application. The school will just kind of have to pick up the rest. So if it's $8,000, we will reimburse $6,000, and then the school will just be responsible for the other $2,000. And then things that we cannot reimburse for, shipping and handling, we don't pay any of that. Taxes, which you guys should be tax exempt anyway, so that shouldn't be an issue. Medical equipment, like hearing aids, things like that. And subscriptions are really hard for us to reimburse for, just because we're just going to give you that one-time payment. Licenses are different. There are some software licenses that we will reimburse for, but subscriptions are harder. And then the steps to apply, I'm just going to go to, let me see if I can. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. Sorry, sometimes the bar gets in the way. Okay, let me reshare this. And I know we're kind of hitting that half-hour mark. If you need to jump off, feel free to email or call if you do have questions. Okay, so this is our main page. It's just at.mo.gov. And so over here we have assistive technology programs. So this is the device loan. If you guys do need to request a loan before you apply for ATR, that would be everything that you need is there. A little bit further down, it's AT Reimbursement for schools. So this, again, it goes over the qualifications, what we can and can't reimburse for. And then the link is down here towards the bottom. So it won't let me go through all of this unless I fill it out. But it's just a Google form. Again, it's best if you have like the present level, special considerations page, the MOSIS number and the birthday, if you have all that information beforehand. And I know it says it's 26 pages. That is 26 pages. If you fill out, like if you're requesting 10 devices and you say yes to like all the things, usually I've done it. I've gone through this. It's usually only about 10 or 11 pages. So don't be frightened by that number. So it's fairly simple to get to. Again, it's not a super complicated application, but if you do have issues, I know some people in the past have had issues. You know, I know you have to have a Google account to access that. So if you have issues with that and you need a paper copy, we can do that as well. You can email us. It's not quite, you know, as nice as having it all together, but it is a kind of a backup way for us to do that. All right. So then once you apply, typically we respond within a week. If you haven't heard from us, definitely within 2 weeks, email us. Maybe it didn't go through. I've gotten to like the end of the school year and people are like, hey, where's my approval letter? I'm like, oh my gosh, you said you submitted it months ago. So definitely email us if you do question if it did go through or anything. If we need more information, we will let you know. We'll reach out, we'll email you and say, you know, this is what we need. You do not have to wait for an approval letter to order the devices. But I know some schools like to wait for that kind of guarantee. As long as they're ordered after July 1st, which it's after July 1st, you guys are, you're good to order, especially for our, you know, invoice purposes. But it just kind of depends on what your school, how they want to do the process. But you know, some of these devices, if it's in their IEP and they require it, they're going to have to purchase it anyway. So, and really the only reason that they wouldn't be approved is if they're not a K through 12 student, if they're not on an IEP, or if it's just a crazy request that does not make sense, which I really have not come across those. We do occasionally run out of funds around February or March, but you'll just kind of be moved. We'll contact you the following year if you still need reimbursement for that. The approval letter will have instructions on how to submit invoices, and they have to be submitted within 90 days. So once you get the approval letter, you do need to go ahead and order that device. Some companies, especially with the computers and the AAC devices, they do take longer. So I would order them as quickly as possible after you get the approval letter for sure. And then your school once we get the invoices, your school will be reimbursed the following month. So if we receive the invoice in like, you know, November 5th, they're going to be reimbursed the beginning of December. So just keep that in mind. If you submit that and, you know, a week or two goes by and they're like, we haven't gotten anything, it's the following month. And then we just wanted to go over some good invoice examples and some not so good ones. So we do say a zeroed out invoice. It just needs to be clear that the items have been paid for. So this one, it looks like it's from Apple. Amount received, it looks like it was paid by a credit card. Your Visa was charged for this amount. That's great. This was probably actually an app for something like TouchChat. So again, this is all the same. This is just 2 pages of it. So this is great. Thank you for your payment. It, you know, lets us know it was paid by a card. It was paid for this amount. The only thing I wanted to point out here is we do not cover shipping and handling. So a lot of your invoices, because the items do have to be shipped to you, and you do kind of pay for all of that at once. So that's fine if it has the shipping and handling included in that. You just need to subtract that amount. So like for this one, it says the total that was paid was $3,456. We will only reimburse $3,395. So again, this is a great invoice, but just kind of keep that in mind if like if you're looking at the total and you're like, why weren't we reimbursed that total? It's probably because there was shipping and handling and we took that off. Again, this is another great example. It just, again, has the shipping and handling, so we'll just take that off. But, you know, this amount was $5,035 that was charged to a credit card. And this, it says total due down here, it's zero. So that's what we mean when we say a zeroed out invoice. If you can get that, that's the most preferable, so we know that it has been fully paid for. This one, again, there's a nice stamp on it that says paid. Balance due is zero because it's already been paid. And then again, shipping and handling, we'll take that off, and then you'll just be reimbursed for the rest. This one, again, this is from, this is purchasing an app. I know getting, you know, purchasing apps can be kind of tricky, but if you do get some kind of confirmation, email, receipt, anything that says that you have ordered it, you've paid it, this says it was billed to a card, so we know that that card was charged for this app. And this is a check. So this looks like, it looks like several devices were ordered through PRC Saltillo. Again, that's fine if you have, I know, you know, sometimes in schools will purchase iPads in bulk, or if you are applying for several students, they are just going to go ahead and order all those AAC devices for that student, which that's totally fine. This one here, you know, we can see the different amounts for each one. And so we can, you know, go off of that, but we know with this check, the invoice amount, we know that that has been paid. And then just some not so good invoices. So this one, again, it says a payment method, purchase order. There's no confirmation that it has been paid. I've had people submit quotes in the past as a paid invoice, which a quote is definitely not a paid invoice. So if it just needs to be clear that it has been paid. Like this one, to us, this still looks like there's an amount that needs to be paid. Again, this one, it doesn't say anything. It just says the total. There's nothing on here that confirms, you know, it may have been ordered, which is great, but there's nothing that confirms that it has been paid. This one, again, it says the invoice total down here. Looks like that amount still needs to be paid. There's nothing else that says that that it was billed, that it was charged, anything like that. And also, I did want to point out too, Felicia reminded me of this earlier. If it does say on here that it was billed to a credit card, that is all that we need. You don't have to, you know, go into any bank statements, and you don't have to like send us any bank statements that confirm that it was paid. As long as there's something on the receipt that says that it was billed and paid or charged, that's all we need for that. Let me see. Again, this one, the total down here, there's nothing else on here that says that it's been charged. All right. Felicia, did you have anything else that you wanted to add as far as invoices? Felicia is usually the one that will look at the invoices, and she kind of processes that on her end. So is there anything else, Felicia?
I think you covered it pretty well, Kara. Again, you know, just make sure they're showing that they are paid those invoices. Don't submit those purchase orders and quotes, please.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you, Kara.
Yeah, absolutely.